You're listening to All In. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you fulfill the mission of God in your life and around the world. I'm your host, Jeff Roper.
It's probably me.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of All In. Believe it or not, this is take number 5. We're having quite an interesting situation here, trying to get our technology to cooperate with us, but hopefully now we will be able to get this done and deliver you a quality, outstanding podcast. Hey folks, thanks for taking time to be with us. I sure do appreciate the fact that you have chosen, of all the options you've got out there, to make All In part of your podcast diet. I sure do appreciate it. If you do enjoy this podcast, help us get the word out. Share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, share it on, heck, even if MySpace is still out there, you can try that, see if there's anybody paying attention. Or you can share it with your friends, family, or even people you love through email. Send them a note, say, hey, you might like this, check it out. And then finally, before we get into the main event, if you benefit from this podcast and you believe in what we're doing in cultivating church planting movements throughout Europe, as well as mobilizing the U.S. church to engage in the mission of God. If you believe in that and you benefit from this podcast, would you consider becoming a partner with us? You can go to jeffroper.com and click on the bright orange button there on the right-hand side of the screen that says help support our work. And there you can find out ways you can get involved in helping us take the good news of Jesus Christ to the nations. This week, it's my guest to have with me a good friend of mine that I got to know about 15, well, excuse me, not 15, that was a long time ago, but not quite that long. But I've known this guest for a few years now. We first met in Brașov, Romania. We were both there doing some work. I was exploring ways to help get the Foursquare movement stabilized and launched into Romania, and he was there, found out he'd been working there for a long time, and we quickly built a good friendship. And so I'd like you to welcome to this week's episode of All In, my good friend, Jeffry Forbes. Jeffry, welcome to the show.
Thanks, buddy. It's good to be with you.
Hey, it's good to talk to you again. This is take number 5.
It is.
You are probably tired of hearing all of the stuff I just got through saying, but hey, so far so good.
Yeah.
Hey, how long have you been going to Romania?
About 15 years.
Wow. How'd you get involved?
It was kind of crazy. My wife and I, we were at church one day, and we were praying about where we needed to go in the world. We felt like we needed to do something. My wife, Kelly, did YWAM for a long time, and missions was always on our heart.
Okay.
And so a guy walked up to us in church and randomly said, hey, I'm going to Romania in 2 months. You should go with us. And he was going with a church from Washington.
Okay.
And my wife and I said, absolutely. And so we got on an airplane and we ended up in Romania.
Wow. Now, missions had been part of your heart, and had you been to any other country prior to that?
I hadn't. My wife Kelly had. She's been to South Africa and South America. She's been all over.
Okay. So you landed in Romania, and that was 15 years ago. How many times have you been back?
I was just processing. I think in November when we go back, it'll be number 17.
Wow. So obviously you have a love for the people.
We do. We love that place.
Why? What is it about Romania that has stuck in your heart?
I think the thing from the very first time we went, the people, man, they're all about relationships. They just want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
And they're very soft, very loving people.
Mm-hmm.
And you just felt like after a couple hours, you've known them for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been my experience as well. And obviously, the amount of travel that you've done there over the 15 years for, a few weeks at a time that you've done it far surpasses my level of involvement so far in the country. But it has been amazing to me to watch just how gracious and kind these people really are. It's just really a cool thing. Now, it's interesting that we're having to do this interview over the internet. You're where you are, and I'm where I'm at. We were just together for a couple of days in Eugene, Oregon, for a conference, and because of schedules, we just were not able to pull it off. And I sent you a text this morning and said, "Hey, can you do something today?" And you were kind enough to make room, so I do appreciate it.
You bet.
While we were talking in Eugene a couple of days ago, you were telling me more about this ministry that you are involved in called the South Side of Heaven. And I wanted to pursue that with you. And before we dig into it, let's kind of lay the groundwork. You're located in Grande, Oregon, which
Yes.
is where?
We're about 4 hours east of Portland on I-84, about 2.5 hours from Boise, Idaho.
And so where's the nearest airport?
Up in Tri-Cities, Pasco. It's about 2 hours away.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get for the folks listening. I know where Grande is. That I've driven through there once. Probably like
everybody's driven through Grande.
Yes, it is. It is on the way to somewhere else. Is the feel that you get. But I did enjoy the town. But I want people to get a picture of the community that you're living in. What's the population there?
We have about 12,000 people.
Okay. And then, do you have neighboring cities around you, or is that the totality of population for the county, or what?
We have about, you had a bunch of small communities, Union and Imbler and Elgin.
Okay.
You have Joseph, Enterprise, Baker. And I think altogether, there's about 35,000, maybe 40,000 people in the valley, but it's spread out over, 100 and some odd miles.
Oh, okay. Because, what I loved about what you were telling me about the South Side of Heaven is we normally think of that kind of outreach as being in the larger urban centers, and the people that pastor in smaller communities or live in smaller communities may not know that there are needs that are equally destructive and needing effective ministry of what you were explaining to me, what you guys have been doing at South Side of Heaven. And I wanted to highlight that so people can get an idea about what God's doing through you guys and maybe learn something from you. So paint me a picture of what happens at Southside, what it is and how it works and what it does.
All right. Southside of Heaven is a church for people who don't like church yet. That's what it is. We meet on Friday nights, and our main focus is recovery, drug addiction. Well, actually any kind of addiction, but we have a lot of drug addiction in our community. And we felt like we needed to create a place where they felt comfortable, where they could come and be a part of something, be a community. And so Southside just kind of happened, quite honestly. I was praying a lot, asking God what I was supposed to do. Quite honestly, I thought I was going to be moving to a city. Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, Eugene, somewhere to plant a church for people who don't like church in a big city. Because who would have thunk it would have worked in a small town?
Yeah.
And so vision, my buddy and I stayed up all night, just brainstorming. I ran into the church at like 6 a.m, waiting for our lead pastor. He walked in and looked at me and said, "What's wrong?" Because I don't get up in the morning. And so I threw out this whole idea that God was laying on our heart, this vision. And so within 3 months, we had a building downtown. We built a team, and we opened our doors. And basically what we do is on a Friday night, we start at 7:30.
Okay.
And people come, we hang out. It's all about relationship. We hang out, we build relationship. We talk for a while, and then someone will go up and do a short message. Mm-hmm. And we very much focus on culture, the drug culture. So we will research and get scriptures that fit with whatever we're talking about. So I'll go up and talk about identity. In the drug culture, identity is huge. Whenever you meet an addict, they say, "Hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm an addict." And we're to the point when we say, "Well, you've met Christ, you've met God. Are you still defined by your past failures?" And so we'll talk about that. We'll have an open conversation with a group of people. And then what's great is people will start asking questions.
Okay.
And you'll get this crazy worldview that comes in, and then you'll get this other view we don't even know where it's from that comes in, and we get to sit up there and kind of decipher that and channel it back to say, we never tell anybody they're wrong. We say, hey, I totally see where you're coming from. I totally understand your point. Let me give you another view on that. We will give them a biblical view of that. And so then we do that. We have people that bring in dinner every Friday night. So after we have our discussion, we have dinner. We have some cool guys that they come and they jam, they play some music, and we sit around, we drink coffee, and everybody goes home.
Okay.
And that's a typical Friday night.
And so somebody comes in, John Doe comes in, and one, how did he get there? I mean, they're not just walking down the street and I mean, maybe they miraculously just show up. But how would the average person come in to the south side of heaven?
A lot of it's word of mouth.
Okay.
A lot of it has been, for years we did Celebrate Recovery. We worked with the courts. I would go to NA meetings. And so I was pretty well known in that circle anyway.
Okay.
But and the cool thing is like the courts recognize us as a viable treatment place.
Oh, okay.
And so people can come to South Side of Heaven on Friday nights. They can come to Celebrate Recovery on Tuesday nights. They can show up at church on Sunday, and it all counts towards their recovery.
And how did you get that kind of a relationship with the government?
Small town. You just go in and you start talking, and you build a relationship. And it is one of those things. We work a lot with Grande Recovery as well. They're an actual drug treatment place in town.
Okay.
And, but yeah, it's basically, when you go to, I go to court a lot.
Okay.
For people. And so the judges start knowing you and they get to know you and they know our church.
Okay. Now, when you say you go to court a lot, you're not going as a criminal, you're going as a pastor, right?
I am. I go in and speak on their behalf.
Okay. So you're in there and out of that, let's say you are at the court and John Doe decides, hey, here's an option. I can go to South Side of Heaven as part of my recovery, court mandated, shows up on Friday. Then what happens? Walk me through, and you could if you've got a concrete person in mind, without us divulging identity or anything, but just walk through a life transformation.
Okay. We actually have a guy, he came in, he said to me, I don't believe in God. I'm not going to believe in God. I'm basically here to get my papers signed. And I went, awesome. So over some conversations, this was crazy. So over some conversations, he pointed out that he was an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, that's awesome for you. How's that working out? We just began to have a conversation. And he said to me, he goes, well, is your goal just to turn me into a little Christian? And I said, that's not my goal at all. My job is to love you. I said, my job's not to fix you. It's not to change you. It's not to do any of those things. My job is to build a relationship with you and hang out. And I said, if you accept Christ at some point, man, I will celebrate with you and it'll be awesome because I know what it's going to do in your life. If you never do, I'm still going to love you and be your friend. And we've watched that guy, he ended up had to go back to prison, to finish up some time. But before he went into prison, he accepted Christ and, God's just changed his life. And we've just seen story after, I can go off for hours on what God is doing.
So you built this relationship with this atheist who was just coming to get his paperwork signed and now he's serving the Lord. Yeah.
It's, I think when you walk into a place, and the South Side is all couches, it's very relaxed. Mm-hmm. There's not a whole lot of light on. It's very moody, very atmospheric. Mm-hmm. It's very comfortable. And so people walk in immediately, and they feel very comfortable.
Okay.
And the place is bathed in prayer, man. We have a core team that we pray, and we anoint that place over and over again, just seeking God in it. And so when people come in, they feel comfortable, and then they sit there and go, "Man, there's a bunch of people in this room that they're just like me, and I'm accepted," and that's a huge thing.
So somebody shows up. John shows up Friday night. He senses something different. It's presence of God, the life of God. Maybe he comes a few weeks. Sometimes, I would imagine, sometimes they'll come for weeks before they make any overtures towards coming to you and say, "Hey, Jeffrey, I really need help. I need something more than just getting my papers signed. Help me." What happens at that point?
A lot of that happens outside of the place.
Uh-huh.
When there's someone new, my goal is within the first couple of weeks, we're going to go get coffee together.
Okay.
We're going to go hang out, and we're going to build a relationship, because in this culture, trust is a huge thing.
Yeah.
And once someone trusts you, that's the world to them. And so, we'll build that trust, and then we'll kind of unpack their situation. I'll ask them about their life. And then we'll try to kind of pinpoint, where did things start falling apart? And we'll work through that. And I ask them, do you think you need to go to treatment? Do you think what you're doing now is helping in your addiction, in your fight against your addiction? And so we'll explore, 5 or 6 different avenues. What is best for this person? There's not a script to it, because each person is so different.
Yeah.
So it just really depends on the person.
Okay. And now, I don't remember if it was in this recording or the 4 previous recordings, but somewhere in there we got into this part of the discussion, and you were telling me about how you're doing you focus a lot on the deep work of identity, that you're really helping them recover their identity. Is that an accurate way to say it? To discover their own identity of who they are in Christ?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Identity is huge. It plays right into our self-esteem as well. When you grow up and you're told you're stupid and you're ugly, you're never gonna, we hold on to those things.
Yeah.
When we start going down a wrong road and doing drugs and going to jail and fighting and doing all these things, we know who they are. We walk through Walmart, man. You can pick out someone who's on meth, and we have this view of them that they're dirt.
Yeah.
And they pick that up themselves. People, society doesn't view them as contributors to culture and to, good things. And so a lot of them come in very wounded. All of them put on a tough guy face,
Right.
that's just, again, the culture of it. But when you start digging down, you find out, man, there's a lot of deep hurts.
Yeah.
And their self-image and their view of themselves is not correct. And our heart is to say, man, your identity, again, is not wrapped up in your failures or your successes. It's not wrapped up in that. It's wrapped up in being a child of God. And can you get a hold of that? And can you allow God to come in and clean out the skeletons in the closet, so to speak? And can you be, washed clean and start all over?
How do you go through that process with them? I mean, is this a matter of having them get their minds renewed through Scripture, or what? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's time consuming is what it is. We do Celebrate Recovery on Tuesday nights.
Okay.
That's a Christian 12-step. We do Friday morning lattes, where a lot of them don't work. And so we have a huge latte machine at Southside. People come in and we make coffee and lattes, and we sit there and we talk.
Mm-hmm.
It's a time consuming thing. You have to be willing. I give everybody my cell phone number. My cell phone rings 24/7, and it's cool. That's what we do. If you break it all down, it all goes back down to relationship. If you build a relationship and they trust you, and you're straight with them, we don't beat around the bush. Hey, we're all broken. We all got stuff. Do you want to continue doing what you're doing, or do you want to try something different? Because you being in control has not worked real well.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Really good. So how did you personally get into this? I mean, were you raised a straight-laced, church-going, Sunday school kid, altar boy?
No, No, I wasn't. You know, my upbringing was how do I say it? It was challenging.
Okay.
Growing up, my dad was a head captain of the state pen for like 30 years.
Oh, geez.
A big old beast of a guy, um, and so my issues really came about. I was very independent. I could kind of do whatever I wanted, and so I've always been in love with music. So I started playing in bands, and it's funny how things start. You start by, I remember in seventh grade, stealing my mom's cigarettes, and I remember in eighth grade, me and my buddies discovering my dad's liquor cabinet. And then, next thing you know, you're smoking pot. Next thing you know, you're doing acid, and next thing you know, you're shooting cocaine, and it's just a progression that happened. And, I can't really pinpoint a moment, but, I struggled for years, in my own addictions. And, I was really taught if you have a problem, you don't stand and scream and shout. You basically punch people. I used to love to fight. That was one of my hobbies. I just like punching people. And so it got really, really destructive for a lot of years.
What kind of bands did you play in?
I loved, my favorite bands that I played in were punk bands.
Oh,
I love old school punk. I love Minor Threat and the Dead Kennedys and stuff like that. But I also played in bands really about the 90s, the early 90s when Pearl Jam and Seattle blew up and Portland blew up, Jane's Addiction, that type of stuff. So I love playing all of it.
okay. And then, because you've told me some of your story before, you were part of a band, you were doing some touring in some areas, right?
Yep.
Tell me about that. What was that like living on the road?
It's kind of like anything. It becomes a job. The first little bit, it's kind of fun, and then after that, it's really a job. And the whole scene. You're playing shows, you're drinking, you're doing drugs, you're partying, you're punching people, you're trying to figure out where you are. And I remember really where it all kind of came together for me after that season was a friend of mine invited me to go to church, and I'd never been to church before, and so I went to this little church in Albany, Assemblies of God Church, and there was a guy there playing guitar, and he was a really good guitarist, and we started talking. Then the next week I was playing drums at this church. Second time I ever went to church, I was playing drums. And so I did this for like a month. And I was hanging out with my buddy Brad. He's the one who led me to the Lord and still to this day is probably my best friend. I was talking to him one night at his house. He was an intern to be a youth pastor at this point. And I said, man, I don't think it's okay that I'm going to church and I'm playing drums high. That seems wrong. That just doesn't seem right to
Something
me.
doesn't add up there, does it?
Yeah.
Does it?
And so Brad said, hey, do you want to hear about the gospel? And I'm like, I don't know what that is. I have no idea what the gospel is. And so Brad just laid out the gospel, and I started crying, and I accepted God that night. And within a short time, he had moved to Salem to be the youth pastor at a church, and I followed him up there, and it's just been crazy ever since.
How did you end up at the Grande Foursquare church there?
Random again. I moved back from Tennessee. I was living in Salem, and I met my wife, Kelly, at a church, and we got married in July, which is pretty quick, but we were both 25, and her parents were here in La Grande, and her parents are just these amazing Christians. And I said to her, hey, we should just move to La Grande as a stepping stone, and we'll figure out what we're going to do with our life. And that was 15 years ago.
Okay.
16 years ago. So we just never left.
Okay. Great. Well, looking back over your life story, and especially looking at your story about South Side of Heaven, there are a couple of themes that just kept popping out to me, and one was the priority of relationships and how God shapes you through those connections. That you just take the time. We can't mass produce people. You do it one person at a time through a deep relationship, and then the issue of identity. I really do believe that God's deepest work in our life is always on our identity, who we are in Christ, who we think we are in this life. And then he had also mentioned about the whole issue of trust. And I see this in your own personal narrative of how you came to know the Lord, from a punk rocker to a pugilistic person, because I know some more of your stories about punching people, and it wasn't an exaggeration to say you like to punch people. I think you still carry some difficulties from those days, and
Yeah.
not that you're still going around punching people, but consequences of those days, and
Yeah.
just to see how God has used these simple things that so often we think that it's hard to do God's will, it's hard to make a difference in people's life. But you're telling us if we build relationship and through that help people discover their identity in Christ and work with them long enough that they'll start trusting us, God will transform lives.
Absolutely. If and every theologian out there right now is probably going to just stop listening at this point. But I truly believe this. When I die and I face God, He's not going to say to me, "Hey, Jeffrey, you're understanding of this theology and this and that and this and that, right on the money." No, He's going to say, "Man, you love me and you love my people well." And we so we overcomplicate everything.
Yeah.
We really do. It's a simple gig, man. God gave us really two jobs.
Yeah.
Love Him, love people.
Yeah.
Again, it's His job to fix them. It's His job to change them. It's His job to do all that stuff. He'll use us in that, but all we have to do, and I know it sounds stupid, but all we have to do is listen to God and do what He tells us.
Yeah.
That's the gig.
That's how simple it is. I love that. It's a simple gig, man. Love God, love people.
Yeah.
Now, one other thing, you're continuing as a musician, and I'm sorry if I've mentioned this already because this is take 5. I think I mentioned in one of the earlier takes that your claim to fame is that you wrote and produced the theme song for this podcast.
I did.
You did, and that was great.
By the way,
that was funny. When I was getting ready to launch the podcast, I'd been looking all over on the internet for a theme song. Everything from you could buy to whatever. And you sent me a little track. Said, "Hey, here, try this. You might like this." And I really did, and it fit the bill. And so I really do appreciate it.
Yeah,
So
you bet.
every time people listen to this podcast, they get a taste of your talent and your heart for God.
Yeah,
Hey,
I appreciate it.
If somebody's out there listening to this and they say, "Look, they could be in Switzerland, they could be in Brazil." We've got people listening from all over the world that listen and say, "Hey, I would like to try this in my town." Maybe they don't live in a metropolitan community. Maybe they don't live in Los Angeles or Rio de Janeiro or Mumbai or London or Moscow, but they live in a small town. And they say, "Finally, somebody's telling me I can do something like South Side of Heaven." Would they be able to reach out to you and talk to you, maybe shoot you an email or something like that?
Absolutely.
What'd be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
They can just shoot me an email.
Okay.
It's all lowercase Jeffry at LG, the number 4, square.com.
Okay. And we'll be sure to include links to that in the show notes. So it's Jeffry, Jeffry, at LG4.
Yep.
What was that?
The number 4.
Yep.
Square.com.
Square.com. Great. And we'll be sure to include links to that in the show notes. And that way people can reach out to you. and
Yeah.
pick your brain, hear your heart, because I know there's people out there that really want to make a kingdom difference in the lives of others, and your
Well,
story is going to help them in their story.
yeah, and I think it's huge, really, for small towns. I'll be honest, man. When we started Southside, I thought I had to move somewhere. Can you do this in a small town? And we can. God gives you that vision and that heart, and we chase after that. And so it doesn't really matter the size of your community. God is bigger than all of those things,
And
and we just have, yeah.
just to give people a glimpse of it to scale, how many people one would be during the course? Would you during the course of a week would be involved at Southside?
We usually get about 40, 50 people each night at
Okay.
Southside on
Okay.
Friday night. Celebrate Recovery varies, 20, 30.
Okay.
We just started The Landing, which is the high school version of Celebrate Recovery, and that's starting to take off.
Okay.
Crazy how it all works.
It's amazing. And so here you are in a town of 12,000. You've got about 50 people coming every week. And I suppose if we were to go back and say, let's track this over the history, maybe some of them, because you said it's a church for those who don't like church yet. And maybe they come to a point, hey, I like church now. Maybe they migrate to a more traditional style of a church eventually. And so I would imagine over the course of the time, you've impacted hundreds of people, dozens to hundreds of people's lives.
Yeah. It's what's been really cool. One of the goals of Southside was never to be a gateway to church. That was never in the game plan.
Yeah.
But what we started seeing, we have a group that comes Sunday mornings. They feel like, hey, I can actually walk into a church and feel accepted. I can have tattoos. I can have, I can wear a baseball cap to church, and I can wear my Iron Maiden shirt to church. I wear my Iron Maiden shirt to church because, why not? And so it's pretty crazy to see people that had no hope, that were on the brinks of death, walk through the doors of Southside, watch God captivate them, change them, and then on a Sunday morning watch them walk into church.
Yeah.
There's nothing better. And then I got to baptize a ton of them. I think we've baptized 8 or 9 people from Southside, maybe more than that.
Wow.
And it's cool. We got a little youth prison here. They're bringing some of the boys down on Friday nights now. And so it's just, I guess the point is, if we can step out of the way, trust God, He's going to do amazing things in our midst. And we get to stand there and go, I can't believe I'm part of this ride. I can't believe that I get to be a part of this. And it's such a humbling, amazing thing, just like in what you do. I'm sure you sit there and go, I get to go to all these countries and invest in lives. And it's so beyond my understanding that God would choose us.
It is. It's mind-blowing.
I look at my own life and I sit there and go, man, I'm broken. I am messed up.
Yeah.
I got stuff, but yet God still chooses to use us. And
I know that's the amazing, the amazing thing of it.
Yeah.
And don't you love it when people go, man, dude, I don't know how you do what you do, and you're going, I don't either.
Yeah.
And you're free in that, and you go, hallelujah, God's doing it. All we do is show up.
Yeah. And again, we overcomplicate everything.
Yeah.
I don't have to sit and figure things.
No. It's just like you've been saying, build relationship, love people, get connected with their heart, let Jesus Christ transform them. Well, hey man, it's been letting Jesus transform their life and just see them radically changed. So
yeah.
But Jeffrey, it's been a joy to have you on the podcast this week. I sure do appreciate you taking time to talk with me again.
Oh man, anything for you, man. I appreciate it.
Well, we're done now. Thanks for listening. This is Jeff Roper reminding you that the mission of God is too grand for mediocrity or average living. You were created for a purpose, and that purpose is found in the mission of God. It's your life. Now go live it.